Okay, hello and welcome to MSDynamicsWorld.com's Fall 2013 Document Management webcast series. I'm Jason Gumpert, and we are happy to be joined today by Microsoft Dynamics AX MVP author and self-described tinkerer Murray Fife. Murray is an AX MVP, as I said. He's also the author of the Extending Dynamics AX 2012 cookbook, which you can see here and pick up your copy of. He's also a solution architect at IBIS, with over 18 years of experience in the software industry. He maintains one of the, in my opinion, one of the most interesting blogs in the Dynamics ecosystem, and I highly recommend you check out A Tinkerer's Notebook. That's at tinkerersnotebook.com for all sorts of great tutorials and walkthroughs. And today during the session, we invite you to add your feedback and ask questions, and you can do that through the Q&A block that you'll see on the right or the chat that you also see on the right of the screen. And Murray will get to as many of your questions as he has time for. But you're in for a really interesting look at AX and document management today. So without further delay, please allow me to welcome Murray Fife. Murray, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, just sharing my desktop.
All right, you should now have control.
Okay, so thanks everyone for taking the time to sit in on this presentation. Now, Jason asked me to talk a little bit about document management in this session, and I've got an example of how you can go out and take advantage of some of the document management capabilities that are already built into Dynamics with the attachments, and then really leverage SharePoint so that you can do so much more with the system. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple of examples, and we'll watch the chat window as we go along to see if there are any questions. And also, Jason may stop me if there's any important questions that pop up. Now, what I'm going to talk about, though, is a feature, is really an extension or a piece of Dynamics AX that Microsoft snuck in a little bit with one of the recent releases of Dynamics AX. And everyone should be familiar with the attachments functionality that's built into the system, and everyone probably uses that quite a bit to go out and attach documents and electronic files and put all the documents away with the particular records that you're working in. But something that was interesting and was really the basis for this presentation is that Microsoft also changed an option here which said not only can you store documents away in archive directories or leave it in the original location or store it in the database, but they also added this SharePoint option. So what that means is that you can create a document type that's linked out to SharePoint, and then you're able to save those documents away. So as an example, I'll sort of jump ahead a little bit. So I'm here, let me just close that down for a second. I'm here looking at a vendor in this case, and I can go to the attachment. And if I go out and say I want to create a new accounts payable document, then it's going to allow me to scan the document. And this is going to save it away within SharePoint. So I've created that document. Now if I close out and return back to my SharePoint library, then it's gone out and downloaded that image for me and stored it away, and then I can go out and index that. So this is part of the end result of what you can do, but what I'd like to show is how you can really extend out and really take full advantage of this so that you can create your own document management system, and that's what we're going to do today. So the first step, if you're not familiar with SharePoint, or even if you're familiar with SharePoint and using it all the time, then what I did in my system is I went out and I created a new document library. Some people think that SharePoint is hard to use or it's a little bit intimidating, but actually it's really, really simple, and you don't really have to be a developer in order to do anything. So for example, if I wanted to, I could tell the system that I wanted to go out and just create a new site. So all I did is I went up here into the site actions, and I could create a site that's going to be my document site. Now I've already done this, but I'm just illustrating what you need to do to create this area. Now the reason why I do this, and rather than connect to some of the existing document sites that I've got in the system, is I want to segregate the information out and I want to extend it out. So if I go out and just create a new site, then I have this workspace that I can work through. So that's a very, very sort of simple task that you can perform. Now, the next thing that I did as I was creating this example is I went out and created document libraries in SharePoint. Now, the way that the linking of the documents work is that it goes out and you tell it based on the type of document where you want to put it. One of the things that sort of happens with the normal document attachments is that you go out and you attach a document through the database or through the file system, and you attach it to a record. But if, for example, you are uploading an AP invoice, an accounts payable invoice, then you may want to look at that from a number of different locations. You may want to look at it as a vendor. You may want to look at it from the invoice point of view. So rather than put everything all in one location or maybe have separate document libraries for each of the individual documents that I'm loading, I went out and created libraries for all of my modules or all of my business disciplines. Just to show you how easy that is, though, all you need to do is once you've got your document libraries in here within SharePoint, I could go out and I'd say QA documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a repository here for all my quality documents, and then have no default template here for this example. And it's going to go out and create a library for me that I can go and start assigning documents to. So there's a little bit of legwork that you need to do to create the libraries, but it's a way that you can start differentiating or just having distinct document sort of groups joined together. So the final portion that I'll show here before we talk about how you can really extend this is that I've got a library here that I can store documents in, and now you want to go out and update Dynamics AX so that it will point to this document. So all I did here is you just go over to your document types, and let me back out of here, and for all of you that don't know where to grab this, it's in the Organization Administration, and there's a Documents Type option down here that has all of the different documents. Now normally you could have a file, you could have a URL, you'd have a picture, and you're using these for probably a lot of documents in the system already. But if I want to tell the system that I want to create a repository for all my quality docs, then I can just create a new document type. I'm going to attach a file. I'm going to make it a file. I'm going to tell it that I want to place it into SharePoint. Then I'm going to return back to here and then copy everything up until where it has the Forms option. And then I'm just going to place this in the archive directory. So in the past, what you did is if you were archiving the document off, then you'd probably go out and store it in a file location or have an archive directory. But this is going to link it out and link to my quality documents. So now I've got a document type for quality documents that stores everything in SharePoint. So once I've done this and once I've saved it, then this is pretty much all of the setup that I need to do in order to start archiving documents away into SharePoint. So if I come back to the system, and then let's go back into my payables, and I'm in the vendors area, and I'm looking at a vendor, I can go to the attachments, I can assign it, create an attachment, and now I have a quality document that I can save a file against, and it's going to now save this away in the folder location or the SharePoint site that I told it to. So this is really useful because now you've got multiple areas where you can go out and find documents. So if a user is within Dynamics AX, then they can go out and just click on the attachments and see all of the attachments that are associated with this record, and see the file is actually stored down here in SharePoint. But also what they can do is they can search through all the document libraries and see the document that they've stored away here. So this is just a better way than than bloating out your database, or even storing things away on a file server, because SharePoint gives you a lot more control. But this is pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. But once we've got this, now we've got a lot of different capabilities that we have, or a lot of different options for how we use these documents. So say, for example, I go out and I look at one of the folders that I've got out here. One of the strengths of SharePoint is that you can, it's not just like a file system where you put a document inside of a folder. You can start indexing and you can start tweaking the views so that you can view additional information. So if let me just quickly add a document here. So I'll add the same document that I always load. If we look at these documents, then they usually, just by default, when you create them, they really only have a name and a title associated with them. But because we're using this for document management, we want to index the documents and add sort of like additional metadata so that we can go and search on these. So what we can do is, if we're a power user or an administrator, then now we can go out and we have our sales and marketing documents that I've got here. You can tell the system that I want to create a column to index this information. So maybe I want to index based off a customer account number and customer number. And I can specify how long this is. And also something that I won't go into in this session, but there's an option down here for external data, which means that you can link from the column that I'm creating over to Dynamics AX, so it validates and looks up the information directly here within SharePoint from Dynamics AX. So I've got a customer account number here, and that's the first column that I want to add, and maybe I'm going to add another one, which is sales order number. And then also maybe I want to add another one, which is order date. So all I'm doing here is just creating all of the different ways that we can index or look up this record. And also notice here for the order date, I chose a date time field, which would allow me then to use the calendar controls when I index items. And now when I go out, if I edit the properties, then I could say this is US 001, this is order number whatever it was, and the order date was today. And now I'm indexing these documents, so the more documents that we have here put away into the system within SharePoint, the better we are able to search. So because, for example, I could go out and I could just tell the system that I want to find all the documents for US001, and it's going to filter that out. So if I've got 100, 1,000, or however many documents stored away in this document library, then I can just go out and access it. Now, now that I'm starting to extend out sort of like the base libraries that I have here within SharePoint that are being populated from the Dynamics AX add-in, there's something else that I can do which is useful and also pretty neat as well. Because what I can do is, if I go to my accounts receivable and my customers, then if I have a document attached inside of SharePoint, which maybe I've added to SharePoint through another means, which could be scanning software or mass uploads or other archiving tools, then it would be nice if I could go out and just see all of the records within SharePoint directly here from my Dynamics AX form. So when that pops up, I'll show you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make so here's my customers form. I'm going to tweak this form with a little bit of code and add in a view down here which would go out and show me documents within SharePoint in addition to the attachments. And I've also seen this technique being used just for listing out the attachments as well so that you can access this information. But even for a mediocre programmer like myself, it's not a hard task to do. So I'll quickly walk through that. And what I have here is I'm inside of AOT, or the development environment. And I'm going to go out and drag over my customer table, so my definition. And for anyone who hasn't done this, this is really, really straightforward to do and pretty easy to do. And what I've got is I've just drilled down into the design option here, down to all of the tabs. So these are all of the tabs that match up to the tabs that I have in my customer list, which is over here. Now, if you're not a developer and you're a little bit hesitant to do this, then it's not a big deal to go out and ask your IT group to go out and do this or to extend it out. But if you are a developer, then this is a simple thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new tab page here that will show up in my list, and I'm just moving it down to the bottom of the list so that it's separated out, and I'm going to call it Documents, and then also give it a caption so that I can save this away. Now, what I'm doing here, you can also do on invoices, on orders, on any record in the system, and there's also other ways that you can embed these so that you can use them in different ways. But I'm going to go out and create a new control here to embed SharePoint into the system. So I'm creating an ActiveX control. And I want let me expand this out. What you want to look for is the Microsoft web browser. So this is just a web interface that you can use. This is SharePoint Docs. And I'm going to just quickly change the width and the height so that they take the entire space. Now, if I just opened up the form right now, then what would happen is I'd have a blank browser and a blank web page. So what I need to do is I'm just going to quickly override the activate method. So whenever I come into this form, that it's going to go out and perform some task. And while that's popping up, I'm going to show you a quick trick here with SharePoint as well. So I filtered this out by the customer number, and if you notice up here, there are two fields or qualifiers that are in this. One is a filter field, and one is a filter value. So this is how I can go out and I can tell the system that I want to filter on certain records. And if I put a qualifier here of is dialog, is DLG equals 1, then it does something really cool, because what it does is it gets rid of all of the navigation around this so that we just see the information that we've got here in the system. So what I've got is, now I've got a website or a URL that I could navigate to, that I could filter out based on the customer or based on whatever record I'm working on. So if I return back here, I've got my activate method that I've been working on all day. It's taking a while to pop up. And let's see, so we'll wait for that to respond. And I'm just going to override this or change it so that it goes out and finds just the records that I'm interested in. While that's working, I'll show you, let's see, running a little bit in the background. Then
Hey, Murray, while that's waiting, we do have a question that came in.
yeah.
So the question is it possible to enforce records retention policies when using SharePoint as a repository for AX documents?
Now, SharePoint itself has a lot of capabilities around the document management. Now, I'm not quite sure about the retention, what retention policies you'd be looking at, but say, for example, if you want to have version control enabled, if you want to check in and check out documents, if you want to restrict access to documents based on usernames, then all of that can be managed here through SharePoint and through the library settings and also the security settings that are built into SharePoint. So you can, there's a lot of controls that you can put on these documents, and this is another reason why putting the documents here within SharePoint is a better idea than managing them through just through the file system. So this has gone out and this is completed. And also, Jason, just see if I answered the question and if that was okay. But what I'm going to do quickly here is I'm just going to steal some code. So I've already created this, and I created a little bit of code over here against the vendor, and I'm just going to copy this for now. Close this down. So here within the development environment, all I'm telling the system is that I want to, whenever the website opens up, then I want to go out and open up the sales and marketing documents. And then over here on the URL, then we can see, if I look over here, and there's just a little bit of the URL that I'll get to in just a second. And I'm going to pretty much just copy what I had in the previous screen or the previous website up there, and then I'm going to have customer account number and customer table. And let me just check here, the account number as well. So this, all I'm doing is I'm adding just a tiny bit of code here to tell the system where I want to navigate to. And I'm just saving this, making sure that everything's fine, that my name that I had here is actually correct. So now if I close this down and move back to my customers table, so I'm going to close that down and reopen it. Then I now have this link down here for documents. It's going out and showing me the document library within SharePoint with the documents, and it's also filtered this out so that it's only showing the documents for the current customer that I'm in, which in this case is US001. So I don't have any documents associated with that customer, no sales orders or quality docs or anything like that. But if I go out and look at another one, which I had in my accounts payable over here, and pull up a vendor, then this one also has quality documents, and I've got a document out here that I could just click on and open up. So directly here from my vendor account, I've now got a link down here into SharePoint that's showing me all of the documents that I've indexed and I've associated with this record. And now I can access it from here through the screen, I could access it through the attachments, or I could access it from the SharePoint site as well. So everyone has multiple ways that they can go and access this information and query information. So now we're starting to expand out and do some more clever things with the views. So I'm going to start showing you some of the additional capabilities that are built into SharePoint, which is what makes it really a useful document management tool. So we've got our library out here, and you can go out and you can change these views. So you can change the way that the information is showing up. And so for some pieces of information or some ways that you're accessing the information, maybe if you're looking at information from a vendor standpoint, then you may want to see different information than you would if you're going out and looking at from a customer or from a sales order standpoint or anything like that. So I can tell the system that I want to go out and create a view. And I'll make this a customer view. And then I can go and pick and choose what fields are shown. So here I'm just going out and I'm turning off the modified by date. Maybe I don't want to see the order date here, but maybe I just want to see the account number, maybe the sales order number. And I'm just going to save this away. So now I've gone out and I've filtered this information out here so that I just see the sales order information, the customer number. If you notice up here, it has a new view name. Now, something that I've got, and I gave Jason the complete walkthrough of what I'm showing you, and you'll be able to access this through the Dynamics World website. But I could go out and I can change this. So for this view that I'm going into where I'm looking at it from a customer standpoint, I can just save this away. And now the next time I come in here to look at my, that's my vendors. The next time I come into my customers and look at any of the customers and any of the documents that are associated with it, then now I'm seeing a different view here and a different piece of information, or just the key information that I'm worried about. Now, it's something that I didn't really go through in my walkthrough that's going to be given to you all, but may be useful to think about or to know, is that you can go and modify these views, and there's a lot of different options you've got here. One of them that I'll talk about quickly here is the style. So there's different ways that you can look at information. So for example, you could have a preview pane, you could have it as a newsletter view, which is sort of just a straight line version. And also, if I choose to look at this as a preview option, then what this does is that as I'm looking at information, then I'll see all of my documents coming down here. Then I'll be able to see all of the information that shows up here on the side. If I take this one step further, then I can go out and I can look at my documents. And if I have a thumbnail view, let me go into here, then the thumbnail actually shows up here in the list view. So it's another way that we can look at documents, and you could embed this version of the document into Dynamics AX, so that again you have a different way of viewing the information based on the user. So just a different way that you can tweak the view and change it. Something up until now I've been going out and modifying all of my documents through SharePoint itself, which is easy to do, but as just a little bit of a tip, then here within SharePoint there's also an option that says I want to edit the application in what's called SharePoint Designer. With the later versions of SharePoint, and this is embedded in the application with earlier versions, sometimes this is a a download that you need to install, but with 2010 and 2013 for sure, it's part of the system. The reason why I talk about that is sometimes this is a better way that we can go out and manipulate the information. If you haven't used SharePoint Designer before and you go and do what I did just to access the document, to access the website, then you'll notice that this is a Windows application. SharePoint will point you to the install kit that is embedded within SharePoint and will allow you to install the application once, or you can install it just once so that then you'll have this on your system. And you don't have to go out and search for the install kit from any other website. SharePoint has all of this available to you, so it's a useful tool and a better way that we can manage things. Because just as reference, what I can do is I can go into any of my document libraries that I've got here, and through this tool, through SharePoint Designer, I can modify all of the fields that are here. So I've got my accounts receivable, my accounts payable columns here, my sales and marketing, which is down here with the columns that I created. And I can, just as I did in the previous version, to go out and generate the document management columns, I can do the same thing here through SharePoint Designer. Now, the reason why I did this, though, was because this is the easier way to go out and turn on a feature which is called content types. So up until now, I've been storing documents away and just plopping them into the same document repository or the document library within SharePoint. But I'm going to have a lot of different documents. If I'm in accounts payable, there'll be invoices, vendor certificates, goods receipt notes, all of those things that are important to the payables. And if I'm in sales, then I'll probably have sales orders, confirmations, signed shipping documents, and all of those other documents that I'm scanning away. But if I just put all the documents in there, you don't really know what they are. So what we can do is we can use this feature here, which is called content types, to go out and create different documents. And I've gone out and created a lot of them already. So if you see, I've got procurement content types, and then I've got sales content types of the customer contract and the invoice and the order acknowledgement. But just to show you how this works, is for the previous library that I set up for the quality, maybe I want to differentiate between the quality documents. Maybe I've got a certificate of analysis, and what I can do is I'm going to save this away as a document, and I'm going to create a new group here so that I can have all my quality records all stored away together. So I've got my certificate of analysis, and it's going to go out and create that. And then also I'm going to create another one, which is a quality test result. Now what I'm going to do, because I have this already here, I'm going to use certificate of analysis as a quality document as the basis, and then store it away here in quality. So, let me back out of here. So if I look down in the system, then I'll have here NOPQ. Here's all my quality content types. So I forgot that I actually added some here already. Now I can go out to my library, to my quality, and there's an option here that I can turn on these quality content types. And now I can go out and I can go down to here to my quality, my certificate of analysis, and then also add in my test results, And now I've got different ways that I can classify documents. So this is, all I've been doing here is just sort of tweaking them a little bit. Now, when I go out and come into SharePoint, so I'm going to go over here to my quality documents, and now when I edit my document, there's going to be a document type here which I could have, say that this is a certificate of analysis, save this away. And then I'm going to quickly make one change here. I'm going to modify the view. I'm going to add a content type here and move that to the beginning. So now I can see that I've got a document here which is a certificate of analysis. And then also I could upload another document. I'll put in the same item. And when I index this, then this could now be quality test results. And I could have multiple documents with different content types. And I can filter these so I can just see the certificate of analysis. This is useful if you take this to the next step back within Dynamics AX, where you add a link into the testing procedures. Maybe you just want to go into the quality folder and see the certificate of analysis or just see the test results. So it's a way that you can filter this information out. Now, if there's also one other feature that you can take advantage of here, and that is if you tweak your SharePoint site a little bit then, and go into the settings for the document, then I've got all of these different documents here within the payables that I set up. And, okay. Then what I can do is I can tell the system what fields do I want to, or what fields show up whenever I index these documents. So, for example, you may have a number of different documents that you've got stored away in the system. So in this example, I've got checks, I've got credit notes, I've got invoices, I've got vendor certificates. And I've got all of these different fields that I'm using to index a document or store the document away within SharePoint so I can retrieve it. But if I'm looking at a vendor certificate, I don't want to know what the invoice number is, or there's no credit note number associated with this, or check number associated with this as well. So what you can do for each of these types of documents as you index them, then you can tell the system that I only want to have these fields showing up. So if I'm indexing an invoice, then I will be asked for the invoice number and the vendor number, but I won't be asked for a check number or a credit note number because it doesn't apply. But if I'm looking for a entering in or indexing a credit note, then I may want to index that and store additional metadata associated with it. For example, like the invoice number, so that then I could search for all of the documents associated to an invoice and will show me the credit note. So modifying the content types is really a good way that you can differentiate between different documents and also be able to see different information within the system. Now, the final area, really, before we open this up to some question and answer, and maybe I can show you some other features that we've got here, is that we see all of these documents that we've got here in our view. You can manipulate this and change it. For example, here I've got some of these are indexed associated with a vendor and some of them aren't. You can go out and you can modify your views and do a lot of tweaking. So you can change the way that the documents are sorted, you can change the filters that are associated with it. You can also change the way that documents are grouped. So I could say, I want to group this by my vendor account number. And this is also where, for example, I was changing the views before. If we have items put away into subfolders, then we can show the folders and drill into them. And also we can add totals here. But in this example, all I'm doing is I'm going out and grouping this so that I can see everything. Let me show you a different version. Where I can track everything by vendor number and all of the unassigned vendors that I've got here. So this sort of is also a way that I could go out and use this as a sort of like a mini workflow to say I need to index some of these documents. But in this case, I've got my vendor account numbers CN001, so I have some of these documents filed away. There's a lot of other features within SharePoint that you can take advantage of. So I've gone out and through really just the past 30 minutes or so, I've shown you how you can create document libraries, how you can link them to Dynamics AX so that attachments automatically get stored into those libraries. I've shown you how you can then go that extra step and index the documents and then embed those SharePoint forms or those SharePoint websites back into the forms to give you even better access to documents. Everything that I showed after I went through that sort of small development process is really just tweaking and changing the views so that it makes it easier for you to find documents and also classify them here within the system. But as the question that came up before, which was talking about compliance and then I mentioned the checking in and checking out of documents, there's a lot of capabilities within SharePoint that I haven't really touched on. There's also, you can have workflows that are associated with these documents. So if you're scanning in invoices, but not necessarily linking them directly to Dynamics AX at the time that they're being received, and you do it after the fact, then you can use the standard workflow tools that are built into SharePoint to route those documents to different people and then have them perform tasks and index them and then maybe notify other people that the documents have been entered in. If you take it one extra step further, then also you could use the web services in Dynamics AX to automatically re-index documents as they're being processed. Then there's also the capability to have link these documents or access the documents that you store here within SharePoint through Windows Explorer. So that means you can really do a mass drag and drop and place documents here within SharePoint without doing the manual upload that I was doing one after another in order to get it. Also, you can be notified of document changes and also other ways that you can modify these views so that you can tell the system that I want to edit these or update these in more of like an Excel spreadsheet grid view. And then one other final item, which I didn't have enough time to set up an example for, but I sort of talked about right at the beginning, is that you can link these fields or these columns back to Dynamics AX. There's an option that within SharePoint that you can have external data accessed from SharePoint that's stored somewhere else, like in a SQL Server database. So that means that when you go out and as you're indexing these documents and sort of making them easier to find and easier to manage, then you could make sure that you don't type in a vendor account number or a product code or a part code number or anything that is stored within the ERP system that doesn't exist. So it will go out and perform the validation and stop you from entering in records that aren't valid and that aren't in subsystems like Dynamics AX. So there's a lot of different options that you've got and a lot of different ways that you can really take advantage of it. But the main area that I really wanted to show you today is that you can sort of take the attachments function and the linking with SharePoint and really move it to the next level. And you don't have to invest in really anything else apart from what you've probably got installed within your environment right now. Almost everyone should have SharePoint up and running. Almost everyone should have the ability to create libraries within SharePoint. Even if you're using the free version, the foundation version, you can do everything that I've shown you here in the system. So I've talked very quickly for the past 45 minutes, and now I'm going to take a breath and we'll see what questions came up as I was doing this presentation.
All right, great work, Murray, and we do have quite a few questions that have come in. So if you did ask something, please be patient. We'll get to absolutely as many as we can here. There are definitely some themes that are coming in, Murray. One of the first ones that I thought maybe we could have you tackle is just about versions of the software that you are working with or that could be supported in this kind of scenario. So the question, AX and SharePoint versions that are necessary for doing these kinds of things.
Yeah, so this technique is actually something that I've done for a long time, and I did this with SharePoint 2000. This is built on SharePoint 2013, the version that I'm running. But you should be able to use any version of SharePoint because the same technique of just going out and querying the data and adding the filter fields into it applies to SharePoint 2010 and also the earlier versions of SharePoint. You don't need to be on Enterprise. You can use the Foundation or the Windows Server version or the free version that was in 2000 and SharePoint 2007 or 3, I forget which the version was. So from that standpoint, it's really version of SharePoint agnostic. So that's a good point. The other part is that with what version of Dynamics AX am I using? I'm using 2012 here and R2, but I'm not doing anything special. So this should work in 2009 because you can embed in web pages directly into the forms, just it won't be in the document view like we've got here. It would be more in the traditional tab version, which was used in 2009. Now, I'm thinking that you should be able to actually do the same thing in earlier versions of AX, but I'm not completely sure of that. But for anyone who's running 2009 or 2012, regardless of the version, then linking SharePoint into the application is something that everybody can do. One item which would be a restriction is that in order to do the document attachment linking, like I did into SharePoint, that was just released out with the R2 release of 2012. But that is really just giving you an easier way to attach documents. So everything else that I showed apart from that document attachments function, which is up here, going straight to SharePoint, would run on earlier versions of AX as well.
All right, we have a few questions that I will try to lump together here around security and access control. So the details people are wondering about include managing security between the two systems, the impact on creating, placing, and retrieving documents from SharePoint, any of the setup efforts that go into it, and I think there's one other detail here. So any way you can place restrictions on different document types based on user roles. So I'm throwing a few things at you there.
So there's a lot of management tools that are available here within SharePoint. So if I go into my site permissions, so as an administrator I can access this, then you can restrict based on the libraries, who has access to it. You can have different access types for control, limited access, read-only. You can inherit security from lower levels and roll the security up so that you can set up a global level of security here at the library level, and then have additional security based on security groups or by username down here at the lower level. So for example, payroll documents or HR documents, you probably don't want everyone to be able to access, and maybe you just want the HR people to be able to access these. So you could have, you could remove access to anyone except for anyone who's in the Active Directory group of HR employees or something like that. So there's going to be some permissions that you're going to be managing here through SharePoint, but that allows you to get down to a very granular level so that only the people that need to access the documents can access it. And also if you have sort of like a staging folder where scanned documents get placed into the folder and then someone goes and updates them and indexes them and migrates them over to a proper sort of document library, then you could restrict people to only certain indexing people are able to access those documents. Now, I won't, security is always a task in itself, and a lot of times you'll have security profiles set up with an Active Directory which SharePoint is going to allow you to inherit and then manage the documents and manage access through. But it's still, I'm not going to belittle the point because there's still a little bit of work that's involved to make sure that the right people have access to the right pieces of information. So I think that in a roundabout way answers part of the question.
Yeah, another question here, and I think this might have been covered, but it was a specific case. If you have something like an engineering drawing file, and you have an add-on for SharePoint that can create PDFs from it, is it possible then to make only the PDF file accessible from AX? Access to that PDF in the SharePoint library from AX?
Well, and I think the answer to that is yes, because what you can do that is you can restrict the views, you can filter the views. So if you create, when we go in, let me browse back to here, just to show that if I modify my view, then I can go out and add a filter here that says that I'd go out and say I want to filter it so that based on the content type or based on the type of file is, if it's a PDF, then display it, otherwise don't display anything else. Or have it placed into a subfolder, which is another option for you. So based on how you configure the views into the system, you can restrict what the people within Dynamics AX see.
All right, we have an interesting question here. What value do third-party document management systems add to what's natively available within AX and SharePoint?
Now, I've seen a lot of third-party add-ons for SharePoint, and I think I was looking at that question in the chat box, and there's additional features that extend out SharePoint. For example, document scanning. You can have application extensions to SharePoint that allow you to scan documents in, and then also add OCR, so you can automatically index documents based on fields which the system can recognize to pull it in. You can also sometimes you can have other add-ons that extend out the searching capabilities. So they allow you to search over multiple sites and create queries so that you can have more selective searches within the system. Now, for larger organizations, and that's important. So it adds a lot of value into the system. But for just simple document management, a lot of the time you don't necessarily need those sort of bells and whistles within the system.
All right, great. We had a question here. I think you might have touched on this, but the question was, did you manually set the properties for the document that was saved in SharePoint from AX, and can these be set directly from the values in AX?
Yeah, so what I did when I did this was really one of the downsides of the attachments, because when I go out and attach a document, then it's not going to pass through by default the index, like the customer account number in this case. And there's actually extensions which go out and for Dynamics AX that will do that for you. Now, also if you're a little bit clever, then this is, you could go into the X++ code, and this is just going out and making a call down to SharePoint and passing through this document that it creates. I don't think it would be hard to extend out the document attachments function so that it also automatically indexed as it was filing the document away, because that's really the best option. But as you saw, when I go out and index this, and this is going to go out and really just put the document away for indexing, and it'll probably be a small chunk of code that would go out and also automatically index it. If anyone does do that, then send me the code, because I'd love to use it.
And maybe a somewhat related question, automatic mapping of document types between AX and content types in SharePoint. Is there anything around that?
Now, not like with the indexes and the content types, that would be something that you'd want to go out and sort of tweak the system yourself, because when I go out to my document types, there's a category here that's associated with my document attachments. So these could be passed through into SharePoint and then automatically assign those content types for you. So I'd see that you'd go out and create categories for like the AP invoice, for the credit note and so forth. And then when you go out and have additional documents here, then I'd automatically pass those through. But in the example that I've got, I didn't go that extra step in order to do that. But the framework is there for you to take advantage of if you sort of roll up your sleeves and do a little bit of extra work.
Okay, we are actually working our way through the list here. So I would invite anyone who still has a question to get it in now, because we are reaching the top of the hour and the end of our healthy list of questions here. Is there any way to use AX role senders while defining the security access in SharePoint?
Now, I think that question is just, can you, with the document libraries I've created, you could embed those here within the role center so that then you can have links directly to the document. I'm not quite sure what the question is getting at, and whether it's can you use the security roles that are set up that allow you to access the role centers to restrict access to certain document libraries. And in that case, you could, because it's really just a security profile within Active Directory that you're linking over through. But I'm not quite sure exactly what that question is getting at.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think we have made it through all the questions or variations on the questions here. And we are at the top of the hour. So, Murray, let me just take the opportunity to thank you once again for presenting for us today.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, really appreciate it, and thanks to everyone on the line for joining today and for all the great questions. I hope you enjoyed the session, and there is a little survey evaluation for our presenters that we run after each session. Please do take about 30 seconds to fill that out. We'd really appreciate that, and we'll be in touch when the recording and materials are available from this. So thanks again, and have a great day.
Yes, thank you, everyone.